Hello. Welcome to today's conversation. We'll be talking about using new mobile technologies to enhance patient experience. I'm sure that you've all heard the phrase location, location, location. That's really at the heart of what we do with mobile technologies. And I think that there's a lot of you on there from hospitals, clinics, different care facilities, and you're all looking at mobile technologies as a strategic way to enhance patient experience. So we're going to look at that from 4 different perspectives today. We have with us speaking Brian Todden from Mission Health Systems. He's a network engineer. Armando Barajas is an IT web services manager at Houston Methodist. We also have Sudhir Mata, VP of Products at Mist Systems, and Robert Tabb, Director of Healthcare at Phunware. I don't want to delay us, so I think we'll just jump right in. Sudhir, why don't we start with you, followed by Robert, Brian, and Armando, and tell us a little bit about the organizations you work for.
Thank you, Mary Kate. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sudhir Mata. I run product management here at Mist. But before that, in various roles, I've worked with healthcare organizations around the world. I'm going to quickly lead off with a quick intro to Mist Systems and what we're about. We started with 2 fundamental missions. Number 1, to dramatically simplify the Wi-Fi and wireless operational experience in general. And number 2, which is the focus of this conversation today, is making indoor location experiences real and deployable and enterprise grade. So let me start with quickly the current state of indoor location experiences that you have deployed in your premises, and you'll hear from 2 highly innovative organizations today from Mission Health and Houston Methodist. So most of you may have some kind of real-time location system, RTLS system, for asset tracking. And if you've got now a new mandate to go and deliver patient experiences alongside that, now you're looking at, well, Wi-Fi can't do that. How do I go make that transition? And maybe in many cases you'll find that Bluetooth Low Energy is the new answer for that. And then there's some of you who've actually dipped your toes into Bluetooth Low Energy with battery-operated beacons. And then you'll hear the story from Armando and Houston Methodist on, the battery-operated, the Bluetooth Low Energy BLE beacons. Sound cute, they're easy to start with, 10 beacon pilot worked great. However, as you go to a larger scale, hundreds of beacons, thousands of beacons, they become untenable. So taking these 2 aspects, making indoor patient experience great and, not having to deploy battery operated beacons, we want to talk about, and we're going to look at today, how does this new technology from Mist solve it? So what we're going to talk about is, very quickly an intro on the technology, less than 2 minutes, and then we'll have we'll listen to the stories from Brian and Armando, their experiences. So how does Mist deliver this? We've created a technology we call virtual beacons. What we've done is eliminated the battery-operated beacons, taken a 16 antenna element array, embedded into our access points. It's now in the ceiling. Set it, forget it, PoE powered. Then once you blanket your space with Bluetooth Low Energy, you can enable beacon experiences anywhere you want. And that's powered by our cloud machine learning that essentially eliminates calibration and enables these virtual beacon experiences. So what are we doing now? We've turned BLE to enterprise grade, eliminated battery operated beacons, enabling virtual beacon experiences anywhere you want, and completely cloud managed with all of this. So with that, I'm going to pause. You're going to hear a lot more about why Brian and Armando are excited about this technology. Mary Kate, I'll turn it over back to you. But thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be an exciting conversation.
Thank you, Sudhir, very much. All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on to Robert. Robert, can you tell us a little bit about Phunware and what you're doing there?
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mary Kate. So again, my name is Robert Tabb. I'm the Director of Healthcare at Phunware. Phunware is a mobile and multi-screen cloud service software company. We do really everything that you need to succeed in mobile on iOS and Android. In the healthcare space, Our real product centers around a location platform that powers a variety of use cases for location inside your hospital. So the focus of this particular slide is around that patient wayfinding experience. So Phunware has a location fusion technology that takes the great, highly accurate location data provided by Mist, or virtual beacon providers, in some cases your Cisco infrastructure, and turns it into that Google Maps experience of getting turn-by-turn directions all the way from your house to the right parking lot, to the correct entrance at a hospital, and to the patient exam room. Once you've got that location platform in place, and I'll move the slide forward one here, it unlocks a variety of other use cases. So in terms of where everything fits, this is just a quick semi-technical diagram of the way this works. So on the left-hand side, you have, in this case, Mist with your virtual beacons that is providing that highly accurate starting location data. You have Phunware's location fusion technology and our back-end messaging and engagement platform, taking that location and making it usable through a mobile application. That mobile app will also integrate and plug in with your existing hospital system. So in this case, called out to quite familiar names here, Epic and Cerner, where you get down to the personalized use cases. And this is where a patient who arrives at the hospital not only receives a welcome message, but that entry alert also triggers the start of the check-in process within the health system. We work with universities on measuring the amount of time a patient spends in a waiting room versus how long they spend with a caregiver, and then correlate the survey results post-appointment with that experience. I could go on all day about all the different use cases, obviously, but I'll want to save that for the folks that are actually living and breathing this stuff. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mary Kate.
Thanks, Brian. Or thanks, Robert. Brian, why don't you introduce us to Mission Health System?
Sure. I'm Brian Totten. I'm a network engineer at Mission Health. We're a health system located in Western North Carolina. Our main campus is in Asheville. We have 6 member hospitals, over 50 ambulatory practices. Some fun facts about us: we're the 6th largest health system in North Carolina, the 2nd busiest surgical hospital in the state, and it's always fun whenever somebody else is recognizing what we do in IT here. Just last month, our CIO, John Brown, was named by Becker's as one of the top healthcare CIOs to know in 2017. I thought that was really neat. So that's a little bit about Mission.
Thank you. All right, and Armando, can you introduce us to Houston Methodist?
Sure. My name is Armando Barajas, Web Services Manager for Houston Methodist, and my team supports a variety of applications meant to enhance the patient experience. For the purposes of our conversation today, digital wayfinding is one of them, and Houston Methodist strives to provide unparalleled quality in patient care and safety. We've been recognized by U.S. News and World Reports as being one of America's top hospitals. And our main campus, our flagship location, is in the Texas Medical Center. And we have 6 community hospitals with a 7th, one being built in north part of Houston.
Great, thank you. And let's see here. So before we get started, I think it's really important that we look at where location has been in the past. Sudhir talked about it just a little bit, but I would love, Robert, since you've been working with Phunware and working in location for quite some time, what does the journey look like so far?
Absolutely. It's definitely been a fun ride, as everyone in the healthcare industry is well aware. Over the years, I mentioned there's many, really thousands of different use cases, everything from asset tracking to workflow optimization to this patient wayfinding piece. And in an attempt to solve those, we've had folks go about every direction possible. We've tried, wireless infrastructure alone. We've tried ultrasound. We've tried infrared. Really, any type of location technology out there has been implemented in healthcare environments with varying amounts of success. The real desire that's come through across every single health system that we work with is a desire to invest in technology platforms as opposed to point solutions. In other words, a hardware infrastructure that can not only support patient wayfinding, but also provides a highly accurate capability to do asset tracking or workflow optimization. On the software side, it's the same thing. A point solution provider who only has a wayfinding solution on the software side isn't getting the full benefit from the investment you're making in hardware. So it's very important, in my experience, to help folks find the right platforms. The reason Phunware is very excited about Mist and virtual beacons is that hardware platform, and it's a missing piece that we've seen over the last couple of years.
Great. I think that we can all agree that the location platforms that we see right now are predominantly Wi-Fi, are they not?
Yes. So everything that we've talked about has a wireless component. When we look at ultrasound or infrared, they're feeding back into your wireless network. They're still leveraging Wi-Fi.
Brian, I know that you have a fairly sophisticated asset tracking program using RTLS over Wi-Fi. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, absolutely. So today, location services at Mission, we've got a traditional RTLS system, very much like in alignment with what Robert was describing. So traditional meaning we've got dedicated hardware for low frequency and ultrasound, and that acts as an overlay to our existing Cisco wireless infrastructure. And together they're providing location for, we have over 9,000 CCX tags. And so I wanted to spend just a few minutes going down each of the 3 use cases that we have deployed today and just talk about what it does, any lessons we learned from the deployment, and also, most importantly, the benefit that we got. So the first use case, deployed 3 years ago by, and it's, we call this temperature monitoring. And so essentially what it does is we have a tag, multi-mode tag that operates on low frequency and Wi-Fi, and it's reporting temperature for storage of food and drug. And so this is really low-hanging fruit use case, just because it's very easy to deploy. We got an immediate benefit. Again, for compliance reasons, we have to control the temperature for the storage of food and drug. And so this is a very efficient way to do that. Another benefit is just provides tighter controls compared to how we were doing it before. So a great example of this would be one of our off-site locations. We have a number of small ambulatory physician practices, and oftentimes those are Monday through Friday type of business hours. And so, say for example, after hours, power goes down at that site. They don't have generator backup, so the refrigerators go down. And so we're now notified very quickly within 15 minutes so that we don't have a costly storage loss. The next use case, very common use case, is asset tracking. And so this is using a multi-mode tag, uses both low frequency, Wi-Fi, and ultrasound for location. And the benefits, first benefit is for par level management. So take, for example, our main campus. We have a main equipment, clinical equipment distribution room. Think of this as like the main hub and where the clinical equipment is stored. And then we have, on main campus, specifically, we have 72 what we call clean rooms or par rooms. And this is where clinicians go to get equipment to treat patients with. And so we have to maintain these rooms at specific quantities of equipment in each of these rooms. So for example, say on 6th floor orthopedic, we may need to have at all times 5 medical pumps ready to go. And so this system allows us to very efficiently maintain these par levels. Before, we were just having people do rounds to maintain these levels, so obviously a much more efficient process. Another benefit is if, for example, we have a safety recall on a med pump, it would be very time-consuming to, say, find 20 med pumps throughout the entire health system. And so RTLS allows us to do that very quickly. And last benefit, so some of the clinical equipment that we have, we rent. And that rent is based on usage. And so if we can show that it's back in the par room, the clean room, and not being used, we're not paying rent on that. Last use case, and this is a use case that from the network team I've been most involved with because it's been a very challenging implementation. This is infant security. So we have to keep our patients safe, especially our infants, and so we choose to do this with an RTLS solution. And so basically the way it works is we have multi-mode tag operating on low frequency and Wi-Fi. They're attached to the infants, and if that tag goes outside a safe zone, then alerts are generated and actions are taken. So what we had after deployment, this was deployed first on our main campus, and so the pediatric unit is multi-story. And one of the problems we ran into is what we call floor hopping. And that's where, for example, the patient and the tag is in their room on 3rd floor, but suddenly it gets reported to 4th floor. And even though physically it remained in the same place the whole time. So this generates alerts and, of course, is very disruptive. And so what's basically happening here is that we were running into the limitations of Wi-Fi accuracy. So with this traditional sort of Wi-Fi triangulation, it's good to, on average, about 30 feet. And so as you can imagine, three-dimensionally, 30 feet can place you on the floor above or below in a multi-story building. So this was a huge problem. And so we mitigated this by adding additional APs, and we placed them in monitor mode so that the density wouldn't add to unhealthy co-channel interference. And for the most part, we've taken care of it. So today, these are our 3 use cases, and they're working today. But we're extremely excited about this new technology that we're seeing because I think that it's obvious that these 3 use cases and other use cases that we have on our roadmap would greatly benefit from lower cost and especially the improved location accuracy.
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I definitely want to talk to you about this further, but I want to jump over to Armando and talk a little bit about what they have set up. It's a bit different than what you have with an RTLS system. Armando, can you talk to us a little bit about how you're using location originally?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So Houston Methodist has had digital wayfinding for several years. However, our HCAP scores told us that there was an opportunity for us to improve wayfinding. There was at the same time a strong organizational focus on the patient experience. So we had several initiatives underway that we wanted to consider. So we are in the process of implementing Epic as our EMR. We implemented Sitecore as our website content management system. And as some other organizations might be going through this as well, is really evaluating what our native mobile app strategy was. So we wanted to take all these things into consideration as we assessed our wayfinding strategy. So NCR is a tool that we have in place today that we've begun to replace. So we wanted to initiate this replacement with the goal of creating an optimal end user experience, not just for visitors while they're at our hospitals, but also for users that are planning their trip from home. So as such, we evaluated partners to see who could go down this path to create an optimal user experience, and we chose Phunware. So first step was to really evaluate how could BLE help improve our end user experience.
Great. We have a poll for the audience. We're curious, which location-based services are you currently using? So leave this poll up for just a moment. 2 questions. But before we move forward into BLE and what it can do, we want to get a sense of where you guys are.
Thank you for responding to this. Continue to please do that. We'll wait maybe 30 more seconds. I think we're getting a very good sense of where everybody is. But we want all the blue men or the blue emoticons filled up. So please, if everybody could answer that, that's great.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is we're seeing as the results are coming in that asset tracking seems to be something that's very commonly deployed. And wayfinding is just catching up, which makes sense because it's a relatively new technology.
But I think people found a flaw with our poll. So we don't have a neither option. So we will take this with a grain of salt in that I guess some of you don't have either. So again, that's probably why you're here, and hopefully you know, you'll get to deploy one of these soon if both of your if your departments are asking you for that. And some of them have both. That's also awesome.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so a lot of people are embarking on this new journey of using BLE. Brian and Armando, both of you, we can start with Brian. Tell us about why you're excited about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, just to echo Armando's motivation, we most certainly, it's all about improving your efficiency, your operational efficiency, and most importantly, the patient experience. And so we have 3 use cases that I just went through, but a lot of use cases on our roadmap, and including wayfinding, which I'll talk a bit more about in just a minute. But we also are anxious to be able to track all of our patients, all of our staff, to be able to do staff duress, and to generate, this is just extremely valuable data to perform analytics on. And for wayfinding, so we've been considering wayfinding now for a couple years, and I think that what we've heard from our peers that have already done so, we've heard how the struggles that they've been through, including making sure that the solution that they deploy complements other forms of directing people throughout the health system. And we've also been quite concerned about many of the technologies that up until this point, as Sudhir mentioned, relied on battery-powered devices, and from an operational perspective, we just don't feel like that's the enterprise direction we want to go. So we're very early. We just started in the initial phase of a pilot for wayfinding, and we're very optimistic about how that's going to impact and improve the patient experience.
All right, great. Armando, you have already done a POC for wayfinding.
Yep, absolutely. So we've been really excited about the results of our wayfinding proof of concept. So as we evaluated partners, we landed on Phunware, and really what we were trying to do is, can we create a great user experience for on-premise visitors as well as visitors trying to plan their trip from home to the hospital. So we embarked on this project with Phunware, and we have had organizational experience with Wi-Fi around asset tracking, knowing that Wi-Fi was not very accurate. And in our early testing, we found that that was the case as well. So we wanted to get to a 10-foot accuracy for our end users whenever it is that they're using our app. So that's really what we did. Is we did a kiosk solution and using that same platform, we created an app solution. So that's where Phunware came in with their product that was able to allow us to manage content on two different user interfaces, on the app and on the kiosk. So the results were great. We found that all in all, the application itself worked well within our metrics for success. iBeacons were accurate. So that was something that we were looking for, and we felt that was going to be our solution. Patient feedback was good as well. The application was simple, was intuitive. We were able to prove out all of our use cases, including Android and iOS. So for those of you that might be interested, the kiosk solution is actually Android-based, and so it's still the same platform. However, we're able to meet the needs not just for Android, but for iOS users as well. Publish once, display everywhere, trying to create efficiencies as we work through this project.
All right.
Armando, I have a question. So as you deployed this, did you find that you wanted to go after the most common paths, like for example, in our pilot, most certainly when you enter our main campus and the main lobby, everybody typically wants to know how to get to the cafeteria. Did you initially work on just strategic paths before you opened it up to the entire campus?
Yeah, so the proof of concept scope was just for patient-facing areas. So we had the benefit of already having a wayfinding solution in place. So we had some lessons learned from that. So we had a lot of the most traversed paths already. We had some analytics around that. So that helped drive some of our decision making for the proof of concept. So with that, we knew that at some future point, we're likely going to want to create an employee wayfinding experience. So the idea is that if we're able to take our campus maps, digitize them, partition out paths that are specific for visitors and patients, and we're able to prove out the use cases in terms of accuracy and functional capability of the application, we knew that at some point we could say, okay, this is, whether it's a separate app itself for employees or for physicians, or, you name it, you could start creating all sorts of unique paths for different audiences. So we were trying to be as strategic as we could be as we created these paths.
Excellent, thank you.
Along the lines of Brian's question, I'm curious if you would approach this differently at your main hospital versus some of the community hospitals.
So we knew that our flagship hospital was going to present additional challenges that our smaller community hospital would not. So we wanted to try to manage the potential issues by deploying the POC at one of our community hospitals. Additionally, we already had some investment from an asset tracking perspective at that community hospital. So that's really, that hospital is becoming sort of our test bed as we initiate new POCs around wayfinding or asset tracking. So that's what made sense for us there. So we've gone live with 2 hospitals today with our kiosk solution, but the main campus is absolutely going to create or provide us with additional challenges, because it's not just, one floor or even, a 4-floor building with multiple buildings. You've got buildings that are 20 some odd floors. So it's absolutely going to challenge us to try to make as simple and as intuitive an experience as possible.
Great.
And that's really a great best practice. So from a healthcare perspective, what we've seen works the best sort of time and time again is picking a technology test set, a site that is complex enough to present all of the challenges associated with location, but again, not starting with your 5 million square foot, 20-story building. You take these test facilities, you get the use cases right, and you use that as a springboard to build the value to roll this out enterprise-wide.
All right, so I have a question then, Armando, for you. It sounds like everything is going well if you're making all of these plans, but you decided that you didn't want to use the physical eye beacons. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you made that decision?
Absolutely. So we were really excited about our success with the proof of concept, and we took results back to the leadership to saying, hey, we found this thing that's really accurate, and it met all of our use cases. And leadership said, great, but we can't make this investment for just one problem that needs to be solved. So that's where we actually are initiated in another proof of concept, which maybe we'll come back and talk about that at some point, is how can we leverage, that's where enter Cisco Mist. So Houston Methodist has been a Cisco Mist, a Cisco partner for a long time. So we needed to be able to prove out success for more than just one use case. So we needed to prove out the success for wayfinding and for asset tracking. Additionally, the investment would be in net new hardware that was not already in place, nor was it on our infrastructure team's roadmap to invest in iBeacons, because there's no other need for that. We needed to be able to operationalize the support for these iBeacons. So we were going to have to either contract this out to somebody else, or I was going to have to prioritize this support for my team members to be able to go out and switch batteries, to do testing. As I mentioned early on, I support a variety of applications, and resource planning is really, really important, and ensuring that you can not only deploy an application but support it effectively. So although the technology itself met the use cases, as an organization, in order for us to effectively operationalize the support and justify the investment, it just didn't make sense for us to go with iBeacons.
Armando, you didn't want to change the batteries yourself?
Not so much.
All right, well, I guess then we can talk a little bit about what you do want to do. So obviously, Sudhir, maybe you can talk a little bit about virtual beacons, and I'd love to hear, Brian and Armando, what you saw in them that really changed your minds.
Yeah, maybe let me, again, just to reiterate some of the points made earlier. The idea was, if you blanket your floor with BLE, then the entire floor becomes a canvas for enabling experiences for customers, right? For patients, for caregivers, for guests, alike, essentially, and that's the goal of a virtual beacon. A virtual beacon is really nothing but you can essentially drop an engagement experience on your mobile app for anybody, anywhere you have BLE coverage. And so I think this, we feel, enables a lot of flexibility and agility in terms of enabling those experiences, in terms of dropping new experiences and guiding new experiences. So maybe Brian, maybe you can start with sort of how this approach you found was interesting.
Absolutely. So very much like the concept of being able to have a common fabric of technology that can be leveraged for multiple use cases. And so what we're finding is with beacon points, just from a network-centric perspective, so we can daisy chain up to 5 of these beacon points together. So running copper between 5, daisy chaining, making one home run back to the comm room, hugely cost effective versus having to pull in our healthcare space. I can imagine everybody else has to deal with this too, but with infection control and other considerations, it's very costly to pull data cables. And so very efficiently, we can, again, up to 5 beacon points together and build this fabric, and it's very exciting to be able to leverage multiple use cases once you have this BLE technology in place.
Great. And you can also utilize some of your tags from your R2S system too, can't you?
Well, I
Yeah.
think we're optimistic about how that might come into play down the road. We're not currently doing that, but most certainly anxious to see how that unfolds.
Yep. So I can, some commentary there is that as we're initiating, so this proof of concept to see if we can use these virtual beacons, so we're working with Phunware and Cisco Mist on that, is that that was one of the challenges early on as we start planning for this POC is which industrial grade tag could we use for devices or for assets. So that is something that we're it's one of our success metrics is can we identify a tag that we could use for throughout the organization. So there is and it's evolving. It's amazing how even within the last 12 months it's the use of tags and the availability of tags that we could use at an enterprise perspective is it's maturing. So, there's tags out there that we're taking a look at, and we're going to test some of them with the expectation that hardware tag availability will continue to mature and evolve. But that is absolutely something that we're going to have to consider as we go through. Again, is this something that we could purchase at a relatively cost-effective way? And it's the accuracy. We know that we're confident that the Cisco Mist solution is it provides all the value that we've been referring to here today. But then there's the other side is do we have the tags that are going to be able to provide to meet the success metrics that we need.
So and let me jump in a little bit as well. So thank you, Amanda. I think that was really good, and thanks, Brian. One thing that we want to address is the same technology is actually being offered by Cisco as well. So if you are on the call listening in, and most healthcare institutions are Cisco customers, and so if you're a Cisco customer and you're thinking, hey, this sounds good and I want to go down this path, you're actually shoulder to shoulder with the two gentlemen on the phone. Both Mission and Houston Methodist are Cisco customers, and Cisco is offering the same technology. So please speak to your local Cisco sales rep or your Cisco partner for enabling the same Bluetooth experience on your premise. So either if you're not a Cisco customer, you're welcome to procure this and take advantage of this via Mist. Or if you're a Cisco customer, please stay with the Cisco offering as well. And then one last thing I'll address on this slide is again, as they're talking about, it's all about can we converge these requirements to one platform, right? And that's can one solution do, hey, the transmission and enable the patient experience, and yet at the same time, can we also listen? And so if you stick an asset tag on a wheelchair or an infusion pump, can we listen and locate them, right? And so I think that's the beauty of the technology here is being able to do both those use cases. And so as you saw today, Brian's coming from one vantage point, and Amanda and Houston Methodist is coming from a different one. Maybe Brian, Amanda, if you have anything else to add, if not, we'll talk a little bit more about sort of the actual use case that's driving and the business units within your own systems that are driving this endeavor. Anything else to add on the one platform, the efficiencies there, or anything else?
Yeah, I would like to add, I know that here in our organization, when we talk with people about BLE, oftentimes we'll refer to like these two buckets, if you will. One is what we call wayfinding, and in that bucket, that's where you've got a device, and it's got a Bluetooth radio in it, and it also has an application that's interacting with this Bluetooth experience. And that's what we refer to somewhat loosely as wayfinding. And then in this other bucket, what we call asset tracking, and that's a very loose term, but what we mean by that is that we're taking a BLE tag, and very simple, some of these are extremely inexpensive, and all it has is simply a Bluetooth radio that's being programmed oftentimes at a chirping frequency or a chirping rate and a power level, but there's no app, and that's what we're calling asset tracking. I think what we're seeing is that today Wayfinding is very mature, ready to be deployed, and I think what we're seeing is the asset tracking bucket, that space is maturing very, very quickly, and we have many use cases that we're anxious to couple with that asset tracking functionality.
Amanda, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. That's sort of how we see the things here evolving as well at Houston Methodist. You know, it seems that there is historically, Houston Methodist has had sort of best of breed applications. So, you know, there's IT divisions that would essentially, okay, we support these clinical applications. Well, we support these corporate applications. And here we find, and obviously we all rely on Wi-Fi, but as the end user expectation is increasing to create an optimal user experience, we're having to merge and really collaborate with others, even just within our organization, to be able to leverage technologies and find solutions like Mist that can meet needs across the organization. It would encourage you to engage your business users early on and assess what really is going to move the needle. For our perspective, it's creating a great user experience, and what are those metrics that are going to move the needle for us, such as HCAP scores. Obviously, as we continue to evolve and our offerings mature, we'll continue to be able to leverage more use cases as they become visible to us. Because, you know, right now we've just talked about wayfinding sort of siloed in, but as I mentioned earlier, around what is our native mobile app strategy going to be, we could do all sorts of things around patient paging, checking in, geofencing, all sorts of interesting and exciting things, so that we could improve the end user experience.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, Armando, especially when you look at Mist and you have these open APIs. It allows you to work with Phunware for some of these use cases, but it also, as new use cases come about in the future, you're going to be able to build on those. And also, as you guys start to see the analytics that are coming in, Sudhir, maybe you can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I think that's where it's exciting, right? It's like the analytics piece, you know, being able to listen and add that. There's a ton of use cases. The analogy we use, the reason we are excited about, you know, enabling indoor location at this rich accuracy and granularity is, you know, look at what location did to the likes of Uber and Waze and Yelp, right? Outdoors, you add the context of location, your experiences could be so much richer. And that's the ultimate goal, you know, with app developers like Phunware and, you know, just being able to have, you know, open northbound APIs, the type of things that you could do really do expand. So, yeah, no, we're excited.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to pause us for just 1 minute. We're getting a few questions. Sudhir, I'll also ask you this one. Can the virtual beacons be used in parallel as BLE scanners?
Good question, Alex. Thank you. I think the way I interpret your question, you're saying, can the vBLE, you know, beacon points be used to listen to BLE? So let me segment that. So in general, what we are able to listen to are, you know, BLE asset tags. So if you buy an Estimo tag, a Sanian tag, or, you know, Contact IO, Blue Vision, any of those tags, you stick it on an asset, we're able to listen to that. We're also able to listen to any active Bluetooth Low Energy devices, meaning Fitbits and stuff that are, constantly chirping. What we're not, guaranteeing and promising is being able to listen to, iPhones and MacBooks, even though we can and we occasionally hear them, not always, right? And so they're not always active BLE devices. So the recommendation from us in terms of BLE listening is about putting BLE beacons, and that's what Brian talked about, is as now if you enable it to BLE, you have a ton of tag providers out there that you can pick from, and so the economies of scale will drive down the cost, and Amanda talked about this as well. So that's what we're talking about. In terms of asset tracking in healthcare, it's about putting a tag on these assets. Today you do that with Wi-Fi or ultrasound tags, and this one is now BLE and sort of open standard. The questions are actually coming.
Let's do just one more question, and then what I would love to do is jump into the success metrics that Armando and Brian have put together for us so that our audience can evaluate their own location projects. And then we'll jump into some more questions. So Sudhir, you can see the next one from Thomas. What is the chirping rate?
So what's the chirping rate? Very good question, and this is where I think, as Brian talked about, we are and the industry is growing into this, right? So a lot of the tags that are out there, default they're chirping, once a second. For us, once a second, twice a second is pretty good. We've tested it. Obviously, if it's chirping 5 times a second, it's great. We get better location accuracy, low latency. However, it has an direct impact on battery life. So once a second, twice a second is good enough, no problem.
Okay, so let's move along. We're also seeing some questions about vBLE, asset tracking versus wayfinding. I think that it's really important to look at your success metrics and to see what are the use cases that you're trying to do, and I think that that's going to drive the answers to these checklists. But Brian and Armando have been terrific and put together this checklist for you that they've been using to evaluate BLE. So Brian, why don't we start with you, and then Armando, please jump in. Let's talk about what you considered successful and why.
Sure. So I don't want to just simply read the checklist to you, but I think just to point out some highlights, most certainly expectations are much higher with location services now. The industry is demanding much better location accuracy, XYZ coordinates, and lower cost. They're also wanting an infrastructure, as we pointed out a couple of times, at least in this presentation, that can be leveraged for more than one use case. So it's not acceptable anymore, I think, for most organizations to spend a lot of money on a dedicated set of infrastructure that only does staffed arrests in one unit of the hospital. And so obviously the operational aspect of any deployment model is very much a part of the metric, and making sure that it's something that can just be operationalized. We can maintain it, and it has high availability. It's a very resilient system.
I can speak to our success metrics for sure. Very similarly to Brian, so we did want to identify a single technology solution that could solve multiple effective or use cases effectively. It needed to be cost effective, and we needed to be able to implement real-time location tracking. We wanted to be able to positively impact patient, visitor, guest, and employee experiences. Lastly, we needed to be able to readily locate valuable assets to reduce loss, and the need to purchase more equipment, which would improve our availability of inventory.
So very good. I think that's why, thank you both Brian and Amanda for putting the checklist together. This is comprehensive, especially for some of the folks who are dipping their toes into this and are unclear. I think this is a good starting point. Maybe Brian or even Armando, if I could, let me ask you very quickly, 30 seconds. How did you determine, I think, Brian, you actually went through, looked at different areas you would include in your POC for wayfinding. And so you ended up with, the entrance, the elevator, the up into the actual delivery unit. How did you, if somebody is thinking about, okay, I'm going to go start a wayfinding proof of concept, just talk a little bit about the scope you put together for yourself.
So I'll start with that, and I bet Armando can most certainly to add additional detail. So we didn't have the benefit of any data prior to our pilot. So as you enter our main campus, again, we have a lobby on the first floor most people enter into, and then one of the typical routes is how do you get to the cafeteria, and that requires going up an elevator, making some navigational turns. So we were thinking, what a fantastic way, if we were going to pick two paths, that would be one that really puts the technology to the test, and would get plenty of foot traffic in use.
So as Brian mentioned, we use the data that we had from the previous system, but absent that, what would have done is there's three types of points of interest. There's going to be departments, cardiology, imaging. There's going to be physicians, and then there's going to be what we call campus points of interest, cafeteria, restrooms, those sorts of things. So first thing I would do is go to your information desk, whoever's over is accountable to that, and say, what do people most ask directions for? And they're going to give you all sorts of great information that you might not have thought of, and use those use cases, because those individuals, whether they're volunteers or patient access folks, they're the ones that are there day in, day out, and they are your in-person wayfinders. So they'll be able to give you a lot of information and help you prioritize some of the paths that you want to start off with. And if you can get those right, then you can always expand it to others.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
Okay, great. So I'm going to jump into questions here, so keep them coming. Robert, here's one that I'd love to pose to you. Mandy is asking, does this system incorporate a patient satisfaction survey when checking out either inpatient or outpatient? And can this technology be used to improve clinic flow and processes?
Absolutely. So great couple of questions there. I'll take them in reverse order. From a clinic process point of view, excuse me, we are actively working on a project with a pain clinic to automate the workflow by detecting when, and not only when, but who is entering a room and updating systems. So when my nurse responsible for preoperative care goes into the room, we detect that she's entered it, we measure how long she's there, and we can update the system to reflect that that part of the process is done. So that's going to depend a lot on your personal workflow. So the question of what are we trying to improve, but 100% it is certainly possible with the system. Around surveys, so there's a couple of different ways that we do surveys. So one, you can survey everyone who has your mobile application when they leave the hospital. So that would be guests, that would be patients, visitors, even staff for general information gathering purposes. We detect when they leave and we give them the option to take the survey. Or through the integration with your EHR EMR systems. So we've got a customer that uses Epic. We can actually associate an event wherein a patient checks out and is discharged. That will trigger us sending a satisfaction survey specific to that patient. So we're asking relevant questions like how would you rate your doctor, as opposed to the more generic, how would you rate staff on this particular visit?
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, I think that what we're going to do is, Sudhir, I'll ask you just one last question, and then we'll end with a poll asking about what you found interesting during today's conversation. And after that, if you have any additional questions, you can email info@mist.com, it's MIST.com, and we'll get back to you with all of the specific questions. So Sudhir, Dan wants to know if you have any preferred recommended partners.
Yeah, so absolutely. I think what we've done is we've validated a slew of partners. Given this is API and SDK, definitely Phunware is one of the lead partners into healthcare. There is a slew of other partners that are listed on our website, and partners are in healthcare. We find there are two types of partners that do mapping and partners that are doing apps, and Phunware coincidentally does both of them, but we have many other partners listed on the website, so feel free to go to the Mist website. And maybe Mary Kate, if I could add, John, I know you've asked a very good question. We ran out of time. So Mandy as well, your follow-up. So if you wouldn't mind, send an email to info@mist.com. We'd love to set up a follow-on meeting with you and anybody else that has more questions, and or if you need to speak to Robert or Brian or Armando, I'm sure they would spare a few 15 minutes as well. So thank you. Keep the questions coming, and we'd love to have a follow-on meeting with you. But most important, before you leave, if you wouldn't mind doing the survey, I think we'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that I'll say thank you to Robert, to Sudhir, to Armando and Brian. You both have done a tremendous job really explaining to our audience what your path has been, your journey through looking at location, where you are right now and where you're going, and hopefully people are inspired to look at you as innovators in the healthcare space and to use some of what they've learned today in their own facilities. So thank you very much. We'll leave the poll here open for just another minute, and if you keep sending in questions, again, you can do it here or at info@mist.com in an email, and we will respond to you all personally. All right, and also if you're interested in receiving a copy of the checklist that Brian and Armando have put together, also just leave us a comment or send us an email and we can send you a copy of that checklist as well. Okay, great. Thank you everybody and have a great day.